Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Mary Bird's Backyard Garden. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Mary.
And welcome back to another episode in the garden with Mary.
So happy to see
Mary
or
Bird.
talk to you. So happy
Mary
to talk to you.
Bird. So let's talk about the weather. Hot,
but not that hot comparatively to other years.
It's only June.
It's only June.
It's hot.
It is
Hot, windy. It's hot, windy, and we've had rain.
It was astonishingly
weird
windy
summer.
today.
It's been a weird start.
Mm-hmm. But the garden just loves it.
It does
the
love it.
garden is just so happy.
Well, that is by far the most important thing.
It is.
It doesn't matter about anything else.
No.
Hail, tornadoes, but if the garden's doing good.
We did have hail. That was the craziest hail
That was.
that you could possibly think of. It was actually coming in horizontally.
Lived here since the 70s. I've never, ever had hail damage, except this time we had hail damage on our truck. That was the first time ever.
That's incredible.
And it was covered.
And
it was still covered, and we still had it.
It wasn't under a structure cover.
No, but it had a car cover.
It had a car cover.
It had a truck cover on it, and it did get hail damage.
But where did it get the hail damage?
Well, it did actually get a little bit on top. It got it on the side because the wind was blowing so hard.
On the side.
The one side that was facing it got it.
Yeah.
I will say the guy, when we took it over there, said without the car cover, it would have just probably been totaled.
Really?
They've totaled a bunch of cars out from
my.
that. Yeah, it was a big storm. That was the biggest storm in years.
Wow.
So very unusual for that. I mean, we get hail, but that was an unusual one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, weather's always a topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, today we had a huge wind event that lasted from 11 o'clock until, well, I haven't noticed it, but it was supposed to be over by 4.
I think it's still going out there.
Going a little bit.
Yeah.
It was pretty gusty.
It's crazy.
Quite surprising.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Texas. If you live in Texas, you know what I'm talking about.
I know weather's variable.
That's right.
Quite variable.
That's right. It's true what they say.
I have to say the garden and the birds and the little bees and other pollinators have been loving it.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, good
nice
summer.
and green.
I'm very happy about it.
Yeah. Well, let's transition, as we say, right into, hey, Mary, what's new in the garden?
This week, we've put a little bit of effort into the garden. We had 2 roses that we discussed before. We had to remove these specific roses for rose rosette disease, and we have replaced them with 2 varieties of Texas sage. Very pretty. They are the barometers of the Texas weather. So we love the weather. We needed more of them.
We got the one that said it blooms right before rain, right?
Yes. Well, that is how the Texas sage or Sinisa works.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very cool. And the blooms just, when it is either right after a rain or sometimes coming up to a rain, it will be covered with blooms. The entire shrub will just be a different color, like a nice lilac.
That's pretty amazing it can do that.
It is, right?
So we'll look at that. So we're just going to look right at that one if we think it's going to rain.
Absolutely.
See what it's doing.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it said.
Perfect weather.
It's supposed to work. So that's pretty cool.
Perfect weather station.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Well, it's really good for birds. It's really good for hosting some of the insects and butterflies and things like that, and providing them with shelter. It's really good.
Good.
So anyway, that's why we chose the Texas sage. And you know what is crazy, Jeff? This year has been very surprising. We have had volunteer tomatoes.
We do have a volunteer tomato. And you know what? It's growing better than my non-volunteer tomato.
I know.
So we're clear on that.
It is, yes. Yes, they are. I discovered one of them while I was planting these two sage because I had to go in and I had to limit the growth of a wax myrtle. And I also needed to go and take out a whole giant clump of canna lilies.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of this growth was a tomato. Really,
Yep.
I thought it was one of the neighbors that they had planted that was coming through the fence. But when I followed it back to find the root, and the thing has to be 6 feet tall.
I know.
It's
I'm actually jealous. It's killing it on mine.
It's surprising.
Mine's shriveling up out there.
Aww.
And it gets water. I mean, it's been raining and we do all kinds of stuff. We're going to see. I guess we'll see.
I don't know
Yeah,
what to say.
no,
but
I hear you.
yeah, that's one of them. Another one is a very crazy color. For a tomato, it's so dark green. The stem is so dark green. I don't think I've ever seen a tomato with that coloration.
That's cool.
But they have blooms on them.
Okay.
And the other one actually has fruit set on it. So it'll be a lot of fun to see what happens.
Have some fried green tomatoes.
Yeah.
Well,
I've never made fried
You'll
green
have fried green tomatoes.
before. But talking of our little kitchen garden, we have a Grandy over today, and we harvested a lot of potatoes, out of one
bigger
bed.
ones. They're bigger ones too
that
than
was left
the other.
over.
Yeah.
And they're white potatoes. That is different too. And so we might be having a little fried potato dish tonight.
They were some of those were pretty bigger than like the other. Well, some of the other ones were okay, but these were bigger.
They are bigger,
and they were grown under your little. They were grown in a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's under. It's under a thing.
It's the Vigo Gardens bed system has this cover, and it was in there protected all this time. I just was trying it out. I think some things did well, and some things.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's cool looking. It keeps birds out and stuff.
Yes, that's true. That's very good. Maybe that's what happened to your tomato plant.
I don't know. No, it just doesn't. It's looking rough. He tied it up for me today, though. Maybe it'll start taking off.
You know what we did today? Also new in the garden today. Our little Grandy pulled off 2 ears of corn.
2 ears of corn. They were actual ears of corn, too.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they really were.
They're developed. Yes.
So we talked last time, you can grow rice, you can grow corn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have just in a subdivision. It's not like we don't have acres of land here. So we're growing it all. But it keeps us busy. Let's not say it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Busy like, wow.
Absolutely.
We're always going. Always. But I did want to say that while we've been busy, we dropped the truck off to get the hail damage repaired. And then I had to take a little trip to a garden center that I love going to here. It was the Hill Country Water Gardens.
Yep.
And we found a lot of cool plant varieties while we were in there.
They take care of their stuff really well there. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of variety. I mean, we have a few close to us. And we've gone to other ones too. But I have to say after that one, they have a lot more variety.
They
have a lot. They take care of it.
Natives.
They have a lot of native, which is cool. And they have a lot. They take care of the stuff really. Not that the other ones don't, but the one is like wide open out there in the scorching sun, which the one place that we go to, which is kind of tough on the plants. Mm-hmm. This one's got more cover with trees and stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah.
So it might be our go-to. And it's the closest one.
I enjoy going there.
I know you do.
So they had a plant that I'm interested in learning more about. I had never heard of the elbow bush.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one plant that I am interested in doing a little research on.
Okay.
It's a native.
They have a lot of native. They have like a whole native section, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
And I'm excited to have some more plants in our little pocket prairie strip that we we're kind of, we haven't really taken care of it as well as we might have. But yeah. And so adding some more native things in there.
Yeah. You did pretty well over there. I'm not going to lie to you. You did pretty well. You filled it. Luckily, I got a small pull along thing over there, and you filled it right up.
Lucky.
Jeez, I was thinking to myself, good thing you get a bigger one. That would have got filled.
Was that what you were thinking?
Yeah,
while we were walking?
I was thinking it.
You were looking at the plants just like
I was.
You said, "Oh, Mary, they have a xeric section. Let's go."
Yeah, it was cool. They have, if you've not been there, they actually have a lot of stuff for ponds and stuff. It's a cool place.
It is.
It's in Cedar Park.
Yes.
So it's a cool place, and it's close. It's close.
It's close by.
Can't beat that.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got?
Well, I think that is what's new in the garden for the moment. I think planting those two shrubs today kind of took it out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the digging.
We pulled up a limestone rock. It has to weigh maybe the one that I pulled up before you got over there. I'm going to guess 8 pounds.
Wow.
And it is about not 12 inches. It's probably about 8 inches in circumference and probably 9 inches long. But I was thinking it might be pretty to the part of the garden where we're trying to put in our desert landscaping. It's a very small little section, but it might work really well over there.
Okay.
You know, I think it will.
Well, good.
Anyway.
Good.
But that's all I have for what's new.
Well, I know, I think I know what your topic's going to be today. One of your topics. There's a buzz around this topic, and it might be a nice topic for us to hear about. And you were just casually talking to me and our grandson, and we were both like, I didn't know that. And we said, you need to talk about that on the podcast. So what is your topic?
Going to give it a little try.
With all those hints, what do you think it is?
Tries. We're going to be beautiful with bees.
Bees. I like it.
In our garden.
Okay.
One of our favorite topics, favorite pollinators. Bees are actually really pretty special little guys, I did run across one mention while I was looking around that the Central Texas area has about 1,100 species of bees, of native bees.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, I was quite surprised about
I'm surprised because if I went out there just as a layman, I see two types, a big bumblebee and a regular BB.
And a regular BB. Well, let's get into it.
Let's go. Let's buzz right in. Let's buzz into this.
Buzz right in. Aren't you kind of interesting?
Yeah.
Well, two interesting subjects came up while we were talking about bees. One was, how does honey get to have different flavors? Why is some honey have a different flavor from other honeys? And as we were discussing that, we began to talk about the varieties of bees and how farmers use bees, because it's very interesting. Now, a person that raises bees is an apiary.
Okay.
And the apiary will oftentimes take a hive to a farmer. So a farmer will rent a specific number of hives, and these are European honeybees that I'm talking about right now, and we'll discuss that in a few minutes. And they'll rent those hives, and the apiary owner will maintain the hives for the farmer to get pollination on his farm, according to what the crop is. And so those are the European honeybees. And most people don't realize that those hives are transported to different places over time. They live in different areas. And so I don't really understand this, but what I think that I read about the European honeybee hives, there is a 3-foot to 3-mile rule. So if you move the hive 3 feet away, that's okay. The bees in that 3-foot circumference can relocate themselves quite nicely. But if you really have to move the hive, in order for the bees not to come back and create a hive in their original spot, you need to move a distance of at least 3 miles.
Wow. Okay.
Mainly because they forage for their nectar and their pollen over a 3-mile radius.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So that's pretty interesting, right?
That's very interesting.
Isn't it? Anyways, and we oftentimes are surprised about all the different crops that bees really do support. Of course, we learned about the tomatoes really need the bumblebee more than they do the European honeybee.
Yep.
A lot of crops need the vibration, but there are different things that require the regular bee, and they would be almonds. Almonds are a huge orchard crop that really rely on the honeybee, the European honeybee.
Interesting.
Pollination. How about papaya, avocado, apples? I'm going to talk about apples here in a few minutes. Persimmons, and then you've got peaches, cherries.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I always thought that it was more of the flower type plants. But I mean, those are the flowers.
Flower.
They do flower, but I mean, I was like pure flowers kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So that is true. They will go to all the flowers. It's just this system where they bring the hives around. They are specifically trying to pollinate crops.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
That we would eat.
I did not know
and
that
I'm
that
sure
was a thing.
there are huge, many more crops than besides just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, this type of honeybee is called the Apis mellifera, and there are really like 4 varieties of those. And the ones that we kind of rely on mostly are Italian honeybees.
Hey, what's up? Hey,
grown.
you.
They're not.
I like it.
They're not aggressive.
Okay.
They are very social, and so that is one of them. But as well as using the honeybee, our native wild bees are very, very, very important. And many times they work with the honeybees to increase pollination. And I learned that they account for a quarter of insect agricultural pollination in the United States comes from our wild bees.
Wow.
And it's so interesting. I never knew this, but there are bees that are specific to a plant. So there are specific bees that are very, important to the squash population. These would be the Peponapis pruinosa,
Okay.
and the Xenoglossa strenua. They visit the flowers and they will return to the same flower and gather more of the pollen out of it, and then go, of course, to the female flower and deposit the pollen on that. And so they have much more success rate in getting your variety of squashes, and that would be your watermelons. That goes for everything like that, right? And also because the squash flower has a trumpety shape to it, and the bee really has to go way down in there.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so there is a blueberry bee.
Wow.
I know, right? It is a Habropoda laboriosa.
Okay.
And it is a solitary bee that nests in the ground, and it's all over the eastern United States. And so it's a buzz pollination. So I think that means that it's like a vibrating type.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you talked about before, right? And they are very important because, the blueberry flowers are kind of small, but they could gather a load of pollen off of each flower, and much more than a bumblebee can, right?
Wow.
So they could do the pollination at a quicker rate. So according to this source that I have right here, each female of the rabbit-eye blueberry bee is really worth between $18 to $20 to a commercial blueberry grower.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because you were saying, I never realized that beekeepers kind of, that's how they do. I know they, of course, they do honey, but they also kind of, farmers hire them, and then they set it up, and then they take them, and they.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
They work with the farmers.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
And that's important because the European honeybee is facing, all bees are facing challenges, but the European honeybee is having an especially hard time right now. And, but, over time, they can overcome their challenges and the population will grow. We will be facing difficulty with the almond production because there has been such a 67% was the statistic that I read for our area in the apiary industry loss of bees this year. And it could be due to a wide range of factors. And so it's super interesting, but it doesn't mean that that's going to be forever. It just means that they will recover, and we all need to do our part. So another thing, this is kind of funny too, and I would never have thought about this, but alfalfa is a huge food crop that's grown for our animal industry, right? Mm-hmm. And, we used to have horses and we would buy alfalfa. It's really grown sort of in the northern states because they have a cooler climate that's more suitable to that growth. And I haven't researched alfalfa in Texas, so I'm not completely certain how far south it does grow. But according to this source, it says it is the third largest crop for animal feed in the United States. So the thing about alfalfa is that when farmers go to seed the alfalfa, it takes a lot of seed, right? And they need to produce over 80,000 tons of alfalfa seed every year.
Wow.
And that means, how could a farmer go out there and do that without our pollinators? Yeah. We need the pollinators, but alfalfa is a very, very tricky plant. The flower of the alfalfa likes to thunk the pollinator in the head before it will release its pollen.
That's weird.
And most pollinators don't like it. So, but there is a bee that has evolved to withstand that trip. It's called the Nomia malanderi. And it is excellent at pollinating alfalfa.
Wow.
So that is pretty funny. And so the interesting part about this bee, we're talking about a wild native bee, but it's the only one used in a commercial capacity that people, I suppose they've learned how to grow it. Perhaps it doesn't really say, but yes. So it needs about, yeah.
That's interesting.
Go out there and it's
the thumper.
The thumper. It is a solitary ground nesting species. So I was taking a moment to wonder how they're doing that.
Yeah.
And then there is a species that is super important in the Hudson Valley.
Hey,
for pollinating
folks
apple
up there.
trees, right?
Well, we've been up there and have a lot
really
of
think about that.
A lot of apple trees. Yeah.
Now the honeybee, the European honeybee, is in the Apis genus. There are 7 species that are carefully described, and about 4 of them we really know commonly, but the most common one we know about is the European honeybee, Apis mellifera. And now, because people traveled the world over and they wanted to take honey with them and have the sweetener, it's worldwide in application today. So they are a social bee, which most of our wild bees, they can be social, and sometimes they could have a grouping of up to 200 bees, or they're small social. But the European honeybee lives in large hives, and they have one queen, and she
like
produces
your standard thing, yeah.
Tens of thousands of workers.
Wow.
And that's pretty crazy, right? And so a lot of our native bees have a 1-year life cycle, and maybe the queen is the only one that lives longer than 1 year. But in the European honeybees, they could be cultivated for a longer period of time. Today, because of some of the problems that we're facing, the workers are having a shortened lifespan, and that's one of the questions researchers are trying to figure out. But interestingly enough, the honey goes back into antiquity, into prehistory. It's been depicted in cave paintings in Spain from about 8,000 BC. And also, it has been entombed in some of the pyramids. The oldest honey ever found was still edible after 5,000 years.
Wow.
That's
pretty
crazy.
cool.
And it won't spoil if it's kept in a sealed container. So I thought that was super interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So anyways, they used to go hunting out there for it in trees or cavities in rocks or things like that, right? Well, before we talk a little bit about why different honeys have different flavors, I just wanted to talk about a native bee that is specific to sunflowers.
Oh.
It's very interesting. It must have the nectar of sunflowers to raise its young, which is, I find that fascinating, right? And so lots of growers of sunflowers use European honeybees, and they'll probably have, it says about 2, I'm getting this information from the Xerces Society. They're a good source for learning about bees. Anyways, they might have 2 to 2.5 hives per acre. But the European honeybee need the native bees to really pollinate the sunflowers. So usually growers will grow a row of male sunflowers and then a row of female sunflowers. And the European honeybees might harvest nectar from one, but not the pollen from the other. But the native bees go in and they will visit a flower and gather both the nectar and the pollen. Then what they do is they chase the European honeybee, causing it to land on more flowers and get an increase in pollination, which I thought was very interesting. There are several varieties of native bees that are really good at pollinating sunflowers. One of them is called the longhorned bee.
Hey! Texas Longhorns.
Texas Longhorns. The sunflower bees are Diadacia and Svrata. And then there's the yellow-faced bumblebee and also the sweat bee. Remember those little things that would come up and bite you?
Oh, yeah, the biter ones.
They're very attracted to sweat, but they are a fantastic pollinator for sunflowers. So most of the natives are, again, ground-dwelling. That's why it's important to have some small patches of open ground in your garden, because we do want to support the bees.
And we have a lot. We have a lot of bees out there.
We have a lot of bees. We do, but we could always try to provide more habitat.
We can, because, I know you got some more stuff, but when you hear about like the bee population as being endangered, you think about honey. You don't think about all the other stuff. I mean, I don't. Maybe other people do, but you don't really think about them as pollinators. I always think about like the honey industry is going to have an issue, but it's actually much broader than that.
It's much broader.
Yeah. So
that's cool. Very impactful.
It is very impactful, and I think it makes it a little more important to kind of keep your eye on that issue and kind of see what's being done for that. Yeah.
And the thing of it is that even though we have a very small space, we could do something that's going to support a small amount of the population of bees. And I think that is important, because if we each learn a little bit and try to do our best effort, it's going to compound, and we could really be very supportive of them.
Absolutely.
So the thing about our native bees is they do produce honey, but they don't produce it in quantity that's harvestable. And they live in the ground too. So,
makes it harder.
But so there are some steps that we could take. We can try to support the protection and restoration of natural areas. Because I know that some of the reasons Jeff and I are having problems in our garden right now with unwanted visitors is their habitat is being decreased in our area with building, and especially building of homes and so forth. So find ways to support the natural landscape, in our area, and provide an abundance of native flowering plants, flowers, and edibles around your area. And so if you do have a farm, what's very exciting is consider having an edge border around your crop where you're going to grow your crop, and see if you could attract pollinators that way, which
cool.
is be beautiful and be great. Try not to do tillage and digging up of the ground too much, because then you're destroying the nesting sites.
Since they live underground. So they live underground. Yep.
And the biggest thing that we're having trouble with is try your very best to limit your uses of insecticides. And, I struggle with that one because we do face fire ants. And I have to weigh super heavily, how am I going to balance our activities versus the natural, versus nature. And so try your best to use your best sense of using insecticides and pesticides, things like that. And really, a lot of the pesticides, we don't always need them. Anyway, those are some steps that we could take at home to do that. So now let's hit the question of why. Okay, before we move on to why honeys have different tastes, I found different pollinators that are super important to our food crops and gardens.
Okay.
What's the one of the number one things that you think could be really good? I'm going to do Stump the Jeffy.
Oh, man.
One of your favorite insects. You just love this insect. You and our two brown puppies. Flies. Especially the Diptera flies. They don't really carry pollen, but they do eat nectar. They actually eat pollen, and they're very good pollinators.
The fly?
The fly.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
And also hoverflies. And I imagine, too, that they do cause vibration in plants. It would be my...
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So others that are very important to us are wasps, bees, and ants. Yeah.
Interesting.
That is pretty crazy that we don't always think about.
Everybody, they all have a place.
They all have a place.
Yeah.
And so that was very interesting.
That is interesting.
Now let's go, and I'm pretty sure you could guess why different honeys have different flavors.
Well, we were talking to you. Our grandson was here, and you brought this up, and it makes sense. I don't always think of it, but yes, you can absolutely share that with us. But it's interesting.
It is interesting, right? And a lot of it requires timing of the beekeeper. So lots of times the bees will forage, like I said, over a 3-mile type of radius and gather the nectar and the pollen. And so lots of times we go to the store and we see wildflower honey. And so that is a large mixture of flowers. But say that our main wildflower bloom happens early in the year. Well, the beekeeper is going to say, okay, I think that the wildflower time has kind of fallen to the end. I'm going to harvest this honey now. So they have to time the harvesting of the honey to the end of the blooming cycle, which I didn't know. I guess I never thought about it. It makes sense, though.
It does make sense, yeah.
But you can find all types of honey at the grocery store. And if you're up north, which we actually saw huckleberry honey.
We did.
Blueberry honey.
They do have a lot of different ones.
I never thought about that.
But now it makes sense because there's certain bees that pollinate certain
That's correct.
Things,
That's correct.
which I didn't know.
Yeah. And so I just thought that was super interesting and a little bit more involved. If you want to have a specific type of honey, I can't think, okay, let's just say blueberry honey. I don't know, huckleberry honey. So your beehive is going to be positioned to where the worker bees will go out and gather during that time within their radius. But the other plants are going to be not prevalent so that you could increase the chances of you getting that flavor. So that's a 3-mile radius. That's pretty dang huge, right? But most of your honey will come from a mixture of plants.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So there are other things that are going to influence the texture and the quality and the flavor of the honey. Like this year, I feel like we've gotten a lot of spring rains and early summer rains. That's going to affect the flavor. Or let's say if it's, the heat, if it's hot or if it's cold or yeah, if the workers are willing to get out there, I don't know, but it's super interesting.
That is interesting.
So there are other factors involved. Yeah.
Okay. Well, bees are cool.
I know. They're so cool.
They're actually pretty cool. They're smart. They're cool.
And
they
the
do
bumblebee is a whole nother discussion.
Those are my favorites.
Forward to.
We'll have to cover. I do like the bumblebee. They're big, hairy, pretty.
They don't mind if you get right up close to them. And most bees, unless you are really attacking their home or attacking them, they really are not going to be bothersome.
Yeah.
And
except
bumblebees,
for the sweat bee.
Maybe the sweat bee. They are very attracted to sweat.
I'm just saying. Sweat bees after you, man.
I didn't research the sweat bee.
Well,
I did hear mention of it, and I do have a picture of it. But I believe they have a green type of coloration to them.
Yeah, you don't see. I mean, we've got bees out there. They don't care. We can walk right up there and watch them do their thing. They could care less, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. But we're also not aggressive around them either.
No.
So that's very important.
Very cool.
Now, I'm very excited because we have been talking about bees and pollinators and things buzzing in our garden. And I have a small clue about...
The buzz on bees. Oh, that was the buzz on bees. Okay.
The buzz on bees.
Hey, welcome to Jeff's Corner. Hey, I've got, I think in season 1, I did a little bit about photography in your backyard. And been trying to get back out there and do some more. I thought I'd kind of do a quick overview again, just to kind of so we've got birds, lizards, bees. What else we got? We got a lot of stuff out there. Well, we've had a skunk, we've roadrunner. We got all kinds of stuff. But, one thing you can do is I like to do macro, and I've been trying to get more of the, going up close. And up close, you can get the bees. They move around a lot, though. Not going to lie. They're kind of tough to get. But the other thing really is trying to photograph the birds.
Oh,
and the birds, you don't have to be right on top of the get. You can do it from your porch or from farther away. And just thought I'd go through just a little outline here, maybe on, if you're going to try and do the birds in your backyard, how you want to do it with either a camera or your smartphone. You can do it with either. Really the first thing, and what we do, we've got a lot of bird feeders that are up. We've got a water source, and we don't move them around. So if you have them out there and you want to photograph them, try and just keep, try not to move your bird feeders around too much, because they really do get used to where they're at. And then if you're just out, just go out for a few days and just watch and see what they're doing in the mornings or at late, the golden hour. So the golden hour is, an hour before sunset, an hour before sunrise.
Interesting.
But if you go out there and watch them, you can kind of see, what type of birds are coming, and you'll see the same bird. We have cardinals, which we like. I mean, we have the same birds coming by.
Yes.
And they all, they do the same types of things. So they're predictable, and that's really what you want to do if you're trying to photograph them in the backyard, is try and find something that's predictable. So we do have the bird feeders. We have a lot of, we also have hummingbirds that, are there on our plants as well, and flowers. So do that, put some bird feeders out and kind of see what they do. Remember to keep the feeders clean if you can. They want to make sure that you have a clean feeder out there. And then just some of the basics. Like I said, you can use your phone. It's kind of hard to use your phone if you're not close. Some of the cameras now, they have, the mirrorless cameras are out there. They used to have the DSLR ones. I mean, they still do. But yeah, you really want to get something with a telephoto lens that maybe, up to like a 400 millimeter. And I have a 100-400 that I use. I have one that's a little smaller too that works as well. And if you can, just find yourself a position where you know that they're going to be showing up, and just honestly just sit and kind of wait. And the thing with these cameras, you can take 20 pictures. You don't have to, they're not all going to be, it's not film. You're not wasting anything. So you can just keep firing off pictures and try and catch them in different, poses or drinking water, eating, singing, whatever they're doing. And just take a bunch of pictures. And then when you take them back and you're looking at them later, you'll definitely find some that are keepers. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the most wonderful part is the detail that you've been able to capture on the bird.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. I mean, you can, I like focusing on, the kind of the key when you're doing these is, what they'll always say is you want to focus on the eyes because that'll give you a break. But, you can get other shots. You can get their tails, which are generally really colorful. They have cool patterns on them. Anything that kind of interests you. So if once you set the feeders up, they're going to come. And I'm sure a lot of people have feeders, and I'm sure that if you do, you know what birds are coming. And it's kind of cool. You can just wait for them and fire off some shots, and you can get them doing kind of different things each day. They do something a little different. You can do one thing if you do have a not your smartphone. I think you can, but I really wouldn't recommend a smartphone for this because you're not going to get a close enough picture, and it's going to be, the quality of those are great if you're doing selfies and close-up stuff. But for this, I wouldn't recommend it. But you can put your camera in burst mode, so you can, push the button once down. It'll take a burst of 10, photos or something at one time. And then, like I said, once you go back and you're processing after and looking at them, you can see, hey, I got some pretty cool ones there. So the timing, like I said, early mornings. For us here, early morning's best. We get a lot of birds here in the morning. And then, use the long lens. You don't want to get up close and scare them. And they are pretty skittish. I mean, to be honest with you, we can, especially the cardinals, they come in pairs, the male and the female, and they're always looking out for each other. And they're the most colorful ones that we have. We've seen some other cool ones. But you want to really kind of take your time and just relax and enjoy it. I mean, enjoy watching them. There's always the rule of thirds in photography. So you want to have your photos in thirds. You want to have your bird a little off center. You don't really want to have the bird right in the middle of the frame if you can avoid it. Use your garden as a background, right? Flowers, your feeder, branches. And then, like I said, you can catch them. We have a little water thing. They catch them in the water, feeding, singing, fighting, chirping at each other. But it's once you get the pictures down, you take a look at them in post-processing, and you can crop them, and you can crop real close into their eyes or their face or their tail or whatever you want to do, and you can adjust it as well. So that's pretty cool.
It's super cool.
It's easy to do, and just pull your camera out and just honestly in the morning you can get a cup of coffee and just sit and watch them, and then take a bunch of pictures, and you can always process them later. Now there are, there's different types of cameras. We talked before. I have a micro 4/3 camera that really just means that the sensor is a little bit smaller. It's better for macro work, to be honest with you. They're really good because of the depth of field is really good on those. They have the full frame ones that are out there now, and they have C sensors. There's a million of them out there, but they're all going to work in the backyard. I mean, you're not, unless you're blowing your picture up to some kind of a, huge thing. They're all going to be good. And I wouldn't encourage you to print them. I mean, I'm encouraging myself to print them. You got 8 million photographs out there just sitting on your hard drive. It's nice, but start printing them out and showing people what you got.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I had. I had the, go out and do some photographing.
One thing that happened today, we were pulling the potatoes up, and our little Grandy was looking at the potato very closely, and there was the tiniest little snail making his way across the potato. And I know he ran up on the porch, and I think you actually got a shot of it.
And that's one of those cases where, like, you can use a smartphone because you have it. I'm sure you have it in your pocket, and you can get, if something's close like that, you can get it. And it was a good picture. Yeah, I did get a good picture of the potato with the snail in there.
That's pretty awesome.
And honestly, by the time I would have run in, got my other camera, switched and put a macro lens on, it probably would have been gone. So, but your phone works great for that. It's just the birds are tougher because you're just not going to get the quality of a picture you're going to want.
That's right.
I mean, the smartphones are good; they're really good, but they don't replace an actual camera and a long lens if you're trying to do wildlife and birds and stuff. At least in my opinion. So that's what I had. I mean, I've been doing some macro with the camera as well, and you can go out there and just walk your garden, and it's amazing what's out there. You have a lot of stuff in the garden. I'm still trying to catch. I want to catch these. Every time I don't have the camera, I see the lizards, and then they're not. You literally are going to have it. They're not waiting around for you. So,
no.
And we've seen some big ones in the yard. So I'm kind of hoping that they'll be out there when I'm doing the birds, and I can have the longer lens on. I can probably get them.
Yes.
Because there are some big ones that's kind of popped their head up. So I'd like to get those. But that's something you just got to be ready for. So that's what I had for.
Are
Jeff's
they leaping
Corner.
Lizards?
They're leaping lizards. They leap. We got all kinds of lizards out there. You never know what you're going to have out there, which is kind of cool. And I'm sure your gardens are the same way. I mean, if you have a garden, you've got stuff in there. So take a look around and see even the smallest things out there, just on the flowers and.
So interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's in your garden. There's a whole nother world out there. So, if you enjoy photography, then get out there and do some.
I love that, Jeff's Corner.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I give you a round of applause.
Hey, I did try to get the bees. Man, those dang bees! I tried to get the bumblebees, and as soon as I focused, he'd move. They don't stay. They do not stay still very often. No. And that was a case where I had to take a lot of pictures to get a couple decent ones, which is fine. I mean, doesn't cost anything, and it's just firing off pictures. But every time I got something focused, he'd move to another flower, and I was looking like an idiot out there moving around. But I did get a few, so there you go.
I love it. I did want to just have a little mention. If you run into a problem in your yard and you really need to use an insecticide or pesticide, wait. Because Jeff is talking about how the bees are so active, but at night they're not active and they go away. And so if you must use something, even if it's BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, try to use it in the evening after the bees have departed.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
All right.
That's one tip.
What else you got?
There. Oh, well, we came home from the Hill Country Water Garden with a very cute plant. Super cute plant.
Well, I'm going to have to ask which one because we came home with a lot of plants. From
a wagon full.
Yes, we did. A wagon full.
We came home with a little Tradescantia. I think it should be pronounced Cia montana.
Okay.
But it has two L's, so perhaps you would pronounce it Scilla montana. I don't know. But some people call it the white gossamer plant.
Okay.
Or the cobweb spiderwort. Mm-hmm. It is a spiderwort, and this thing is darling. I'm quite excited about it. It's actually a succulent, and we've talked about how we do like that category of plants, before. And it's actually hardy. It's very hardy in our area. And this will grow well from zone 8B to zone 11. So what that means for me is that I could probably overwinter this in a container. Perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe with a little protection. I don't know. But it's very short little plant. It only gets this says 8 inches, but there is another description where it could get up to a foot tall, and it spreads out. It does grow with rhizomes, I believe, but I think it's quite a slower type of grower. The flowers are beautiful. So what happens on the variety that we got, which is called Velvet Hills, the leaves come out and they are almost like in a 180 direction from one another. And the leaves are a kind of a bluey green, but they're covered with this hairy substance that makes them look like they have a beard or cobwebs all over them, right? And it gives it sort of a silvery color. And then the pretty pink blooms come out during the warm weather. Low growing perennial.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will have it. And they do grow very well in our area, which includes the hot, humid summers and everything. So I'm so excited about this plant. It does well in ground, and I think it does well in containers. And if you happen to break off a stem, you could either stick it back into the soil and it'll re-root, or you could put it in a glass of water and it'll root for you.
Okay.
Very easy to propagate.
Nice.
So over the course of the year, you want to cut the plants back after they have flowered the first time. And you could probably get them to flower again. They do like to be a little bit on the moist side. So think about that wherever you're growing it. And although they love full sun, if you grow in a heat zone type area where we are, they could probably appreciate some afternoon shade, which is reasonable. But anyway, they grow in well-draining soil. Very, very useful little garden plant. We have them growing throughout our landscapes in our neighborhood too, and they grow very well. It actually is a native, but it is really probably found in the dry areas of Nuevo Leon in northeastern Mexico.
Okay.
That's probably where it mostly came from, according to my sources.
Your sources say.
My sources.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a moderate watering plant, which, I do like some plants you can go out there and baby a little bit. I like that.
Okay.
But you do want to pinch them back to control their growth, and it is a lovely spiderwort.
Nice.
I'm very, very excited about this little plant.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one.
I think it is.
It's a new one for you.
One. And it is a succulent, which you are quite partial to.
Yeah, I am. I am now. I never used to be, but now I am. Okay.
So I really sort of at the end of my discussion until we talk about what's coming up next week.
Well, Mary, what's coming up next week? I think we're there.
We are there. Let me tell you, this upcoming week on June the 20th is the summer solstice. That's the longest day of the year. And all of the growth of our plants have come up the stems, up the trunks, and the resources have been used to really push leaves and push things out. But after the summer solstice, everything begins to retract very gradually. And by early August, a lot of your plants are getting ready for fall.
Wow.
That is quite astonishing, right? And it's so hot. We are so miserable. We don't think that's happening, but it is. So right now at the summer solstice is the time, if you are growing fruit trees or other plants too, you want to get out there and you want to prune your fruit trees, especially. I'm thinking of that right now because one of my favorite books is Grow a Little Fruit Tree, written by Anne Ralph.
Okay.
And she really keeps her fruit trees waist high.
Wow.
And so when you prune in the wintertime, you're pruning for vigor. You're pruning to shape the plant and get the dead wood out and things like that, create airflow. But what it does is it promotes vigor because all the resources are going to flush up in your plant and push the leaves, the growth of the leaves, right? And so now that we have hit summer solstice, the pruning that we are going to do right now is to decrease the growth, decrease the vigor of the growth. And each variety, especially of fruit trees, takes a little bit different pruning. I encourage you to do the research for that. But summer solstice is your time to do it.
And it's coming.
And it's here.
Okay, it's here.
So you don't want to wait. Even if you wait until, say, late July, the tree is going to think that you're doing a winter prune. So this is the exact time that you want to do it. So why do you want to do it right now? You've got time before the cold weather for them to bounce back. They will grow a little bit more, maybe a foot more or something, especially if you have sprouts that are heading straight up. You want to prune those back. You know, they right now that the sap is flowing up into the trunk, they'll heal quickly from their pruning, and they're still going to grow for you. It's just that the growth is going to be slowed down. Now, one tree that I have never been very good at pruning this way is our fig tree. I'm really going to have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a fast-growing. It's cool looking.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we do love it.
It grows really, really fast.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, if you wait too late, they're going to be thinking that it's the winter time, and they're going to think, oh, we're supercharged to have a lot of growth. So you don't want to wait like that.
Okay.
But trees put out things called suckers, and other plants do too. Suckers grow down at the base of the tree by the trunk. Those can be pruned at any time. And there's another type of growth called a water sprout. And that is, it's kind of like it's going to shoot straight up and grow like it's crazy. And those can be pruned any time of the year.
Okay.
So those are the two things. I highly recommend Grow a Little Fruit Tree, written by Anne Ralph. I'm having so much fun following her advice.
Good. I know you got a couple out there, so that's awesome.
Wait, I have 2 plums and I have 2 apples.
You got a little apple on one.
And we have a little apple. I'm so excited.
Very cool.
So I've reached the end of my preparations for the day.
Well, that was some cool stuff. I like the bee stuff.
I do too.
It was me and our grandson both said, you got to talk about the bees, because you were talking to us about it. And we're like, I don't know. I didn't know that stuff. Yeah.
So
cool.
fun.
Well,
and there's so much information out there. I just condensed a small overview. But,
no, that's cool. Yeah. It's cool that there's so many different. I didn't know there were so many different types out there, and it's very specific.
It's amazing.
To things. It's a very interesting. You could probably read a lot.
You could
on those, which might be interesting to do. All right. Well, as always, we thank you guys for joining us here at Mary Bird's Backyard Garden.
Definitely.
Hope you guys are getting out in the garden and doing some stuff on your own. And if you get out there, get your camera. Don't forget to take some pictures. Use your phone if you're up close and get some stuff. It's kind of cool to kind of look at and see what's out there.
Early morning.
Early morning.
Time.
Yeah, early morning. Later in the, about an hour before sunset. The golden hours, as they call them.
Golden hours.
But yeah, get out there and play in the garden. And when you're done playing, or before you start playing, take some photos and see how they turn out. So, Mary?
Happy gardening.
Happy gardening. Until next week, we'll see you back here at Mary Bird's Backyard Garden. Bye.